People who read a room quickly often catch details that others miss, and that ability can protect a friendship or tell you when something needs attention. But trouble starts when you decide what the change means without checking, then treat the other person according to an answer they've never heard. You start to reply less warmly, stop making plans, and wait to see whether they come after you, while whatever they do next becomes even more evidence. From their side, the rules have changed and nobody told them. You may replay conversations or search messages for signs that something is wrong. I mean, even when things seem calm, you stay alert. Sometimes your caution is right, making the habit hard to question, but it can quietly turn into control. The goal is to observe clearly and base your final judgment on evidence. To explain this idea more clearly, I created a fictional story about two characters, Mira and Jack. They have been close friends for 4 years. One Thursday afternoon, Mira was waiting for Jack at a cafe when he sends her a message. Something unexpected happened. Can we meet another day instead? Jack usually suggests another day when he cancels. This time, however, he does not explain why. Suggest a new day, or add the emoji he normally uses. Mira reads the message, waits for a moment, and then reads it again. The message does not say that their friendship is ending, but its unusually cold tone worries her. The message also reminds Mira of other changes she has noticed recently. Jack has been replying more slowly for the past 2 weeks, and during lunch on Monday, he kept looking at his phone. When Mira asked if he was alright, he said he was just fine. None of this proves why he is distracted, but the details started to form a familiar pattern in her mind. Jack is pulling away before he is ready to admit it. I mean, Jack may be avoiding her, or he may be dealing with a problem she cannot see. Mira answers, "No worries," without asking what happened, already convinced that their friendship is ending. What makes this pattern difficult is that reading someone and understanding them are not the same skill. You can correctly notice that a person is uncomfortable, distracted, or distant, while still being completely wrong about what caused it. The face gives you a signal, but it does not give you the full explanation. Psychologists sometimes use the word mentalizing for this process. It simply means trying to understand what another person may be thinking or feeling. I mean, we all do this every day, because people rarely explain every emotion they have. But the problem begins when you forget that your explanation is still a guess. In a 2004 study, psychologist Nicholas Epley and his colleagues found that when people try to understand another person's point of view, they often begin with their own point of view and then adjust from there. But that adjustment is usually incomplete. In simple words, you do not enter someone else's mind with a clear view. You begin inside your own mind, carrying your fears, memories, and expectations with you. That explains why two people can notice the same silence and give it completely different meanings. One person thinks they must be tired. Another thinks they are angry with me. The silence is real in both cases, but the meaning comes from the observer. This becomes more serious when someone expects rejection before it happens. In a 1996 study, psychologists Geraldine Downey and Scott Feldman called this pattern rejection sensitivity. It means that a person anxiously expects rejection, notices possible signs of it very quickly, and then reacts strongly when they believe it is happening. Their research found that people with higher rejection sensitivity were more likely to expect rejection, read unclear behavior as rejection, and react strongly when they felt it. Over time, those reactions were linked with weaker relationship outcomes. A small delay or change in tone can feel much larger than it really is, so the person may become cold or distant to protect themselves. The other person then feels confused or pushed away and may begin to withdraw. I mean, this is where the pattern becomes painful. The person feared being abandoned, so they acted in a way that made closeness harder. When the relationship became weaker, they saw it as proof that their fear had been correct from the beginning. They may never notice how much their own protection helped create the ending. This does not mean the rejection was imaginary, and it does not mean the other person has no responsibility. People do lie, lose interest, hide things, and leave. But if your mind treats every unclear moment as the beginning of betrayal, it becomes almost impossible for any relationship to feel safe, even when the other person is being honest. There is another study that helps explain why these private beliefs can become so powerful. In 1978, psychologists Mark Snyder and William Swan studied how people test their first impressions during conversations. Participants who were told that someone was probably an introvert tended to ask questions that would make the person sound introverted, but those who expected an extrovert asked a different kind of question. So people were not simply collecting neutral information. Their first belief changed the questions they asked, and the questions changed changed the answers they received, and the conversation slowly moved toward the conclusion they already expected. The same thing can happen with distrust. If you believe someone is hiding something, you may ask questions with an accusing tone, watch their face closely, or treat normal hesitation as guilt. So the other person becomes nervous because they feel examined, and then their nervousness looks like more evidence. At that point, you are no longer only reading the situation, you are helping shape it. This is why confirmation bias is deeper than simply noticing facts you agree with. Confirmation bias means your first belief starts deciding which facts matter and what those facts mean. For example, a late reply counts as evidence, while a caring message feels fake. If the person explains themselves, you think they prepared the explanation. If they stay quiet, you take the silence as a confession. Nothing can correct the belief because every possible response is forced to support it. Once that happens, suspicion stops working like a question and starts working like a closed system. But text messages make this even easier because so much information is missing. In a 2005 study, Justin Kruger and his colleagues looked at how well people communicate tone through email. They found that people were more confident in their ability to send and understand tone than their actual accuracy supported. The person writing the message could hear the intended tone in their own head, but the person reading it only had the emotional empty words. That is why a simple okay can sound calm to one person and angry to another. The message did not carry a clear emotion, so the mind would decide what it meant. If you already expect rejection, you will probably supply the emotion that matches your fear. This is also where emotional reasoning enters the picture. Emotional reasoning means moving from I feel rejected to I am being rejected. The feeling is real and it deserves attention, but a feeling cannot explain its own cause. You can feel afraid because something is dangerous, or because the present moment reminds your mind of an older danger. The body does not always separate those two situations for you. Sometimes it reacts before you have enough information, and that reaction can feel like intuition. But intuition is not a message from outside you. It is your mind making a fast prediction from patterns it has learned. Some of those patterns are useful, while others were built during moments when you were hurt, confused, or too young to understand what was happening. So the question is not whether you should trust your intuition or ignore it, but you should listen to it without letting it make the final decision alone. It can tell you that something deserves attention, but it cannot always tell you what that thing means. A healthy form of caution can change when new evidence appears, but permanent suspicion cannot. Permanent suspicion turns reassurance into manipulation, privacy into secrecy, and a mistake into proof of someone's true character. It does not protect the truth, it protects the conclusion. You can test your thoughts in a simple way. First, ask yourself what actually happened. Describe only what a camera and microphone could have recorded. Next, ask yourself what meaning you gave the situation. Then, think of at least one other possible explanation. Finally, ask what evidence could make you change your mind. The last question may be the most important. If no evidence could change your mind, then you are not trying to understand what happened, but you have already decided what is true. Trust does not mean believing every word someone tells you. It means allowing reality to correct your first impression. Sometimes reality will confirm that you are right, and then you may need to step back or leave. Repeated lying, control, stalking, violence, or clear harm does not require a softer explanation, but in an unclear moment, a direct question gives the truth a chance to appear before fear speaks for it. This is the darker side of constantly analyzing people. You may become so focused on finding hidden reasons behind their actions that you stop accepting simple explanations. You may start to believe that kindness has a hidden purpose. Silence means anger, and reassurance is not sincere. Even love may feel impossible to trust unless it is constantly tested. These tests are usually hidden. You may pull away to see who comes after you, or become quiet to see who notices. You create distance and expect the other person to close it. Then you judge how much they care based on whether they followed a rule you never explained. Maybe they fail because they do not care, but maybe they fail because they believed the distance you showed them. Maybe they respected the silence you created. Maybe they were fighting something you could not see. A person can spend years believing that nobody is trustworthy when in reality nobody was ever allowed to reach them without first passing an invisible test. Over time, the biggest danger may not be that someone lies to you. It may be that someone is finally honest with you, but you are no longer able to recognize or trust their honesty. You will study its face, question its timing, and search its words for the lie that must be hiding somewhere. You will call this awareness because admitting that it is fear would mean facing how much it has already taken from you. People may leave, and every empty space will seem to prove that you understood them correctly. But some of those spaces may have been created by the questions you never asked, the answers you refused to believe, and the closeness you treated like a trap. In the end, everything we talked about today is only a small part of this topic. I mean, people can lie, deceive you, or tell you the truth. But the real problem begins when you get used to analyzing every action and reaction in your mind. Over time, it can become very difficult to trust anyone, even when you know that the problem might come from your own way of thinking, not from the person in front of you. So there is still much more to discuss. That's why we will return to this topic in future videos. I am Kasim from Unveilism. Subscribe to the channel to see more videos like this.